Jonathan Antoine didn't walk onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent looking like a future star. He looked nervous, uncomfortable, and completely out of place under the bright lights. To millions watching at home, he was just another shy teenager standing beside his singing partner Charlotte Giaconelli. But within seconds, everything changed. The moment Jonathan opened his mouth to sing, the audience froze. The judges stopped smirking. And suddenly, a bullied teenager from Essex became one of the most unforgettable voices the show had ever discovered. But what happened after the standing ovations ended? Why did Jonathan Antoine slowly disappear from the mainstream spotlight despite being called the next great tenor? And why do so many fans believe there was far more happening behind the scenes than the public ever realized? The truth is, Jonathan's story was never just about music. It was about survival. Behind the viral fame was a young man carrying years of pain, insecurity, loneliness, and emotional scars that fame could never erase. The world saw a miracle voice. What it didn't see was the battle raging underneath. Jonathan Antoine was born on January 13, 1995, in Essex, England. From a very young age, he struggled to fit in. School became a nightmare almost before he was old enough to understand why people were targeting him. He was bullied constantly for his appearance, his weight, and his quiet personality. The insults didn't just hurt for a moment, they followed him home every day, slowly destroying his confidence piece by piece. While other kids were building friendships, Jonathan often felt isolated. Music became his escape from a world that made him feel unwanted. Singing was the one place where he felt safe. When he sang, the anxiety disappeared. The fear disappeared. For a few minutes, he could become someone stronger than the frightened boy everybody saw at school. That passion for music only grew stronger as he got older. At West Hatch High School, Jonathan met vocal coach Jenny Ewington, a teacher who immediately recognized the extraordinary gift hidden beneath his insecurity. She encouraged him to train seriously and helped him develop the powerful classical tenor voice that would later shock the world. For the first time in years, Jonathan had someone who believed in him. As his voice matured, so did his ambition. He began performing difficult classical pieces that many singers twice his age would avoid. At local music festivals, audiences were stunned by the emotional maturity in his voice. One performance of Bring Him Home from Les Miserables reportedly earned one of the highest scores judges had ever given at the competition. But no amount of local success could prepare him for what would happen in 2012. That year, Jonathan and Charlotte auditioned for Britain's Got Talent as a classical crossover duo. At first glance, the judges clearly underestimated them. Simon Cowell's expression alone told viewers everything. He didn't expect greatness. He expected another forgettable audition. Then Jonathan began singing the prayer. The atmosphere inside the theater changed instantly. The audience erupted before the song was even over. Amanda Holden looked stunned. Alicia Dixon appeared emotional. Even Simon Cowell, famous for his harsh criticism, suddenly seemed speechless. Within hours, clips of the audition exploded online. Millions of people shared the video around the world. Jonathan Antoine became an overnight sensation. Viewers were not only shocked by his voice, they were moved by the contrast between his shy appearance and the overwhelming power of his singing. Many fans connected deeply with him because he represented something rare in entertainment. He wasn't polished. He wasn't arrogant. He looked like someone who had spent years doubting himself. And when he sang, it felt like every painful emotion in his life poured directly into the music. The public fell in love with that authenticity. Week after week, Jonathan and Charlotte advanced further in the competition. Their performances became some of the most talked about moments of the season. Yet behind the success, pressure was already building. Simon Cowell publicly hinted that Jonathan was the real star of the duo. Some viewers believed Charlotte was being overshadowed. Others felt the media was trying to separate them before their career had even properly begun. Rumors spread constantly online. Still, Jonathan and Charlotte kept performing together, eventually reaching the final. Most viewers assumed they would win the entire competition. Instead, they lost to Ashley and Pudsey, the dancing dog act that captured the public vote. The result shocked many fans. Social media exploded with outrage. People couldn't believe a vocalist being compared to legendary opera stars had lost to a novelty act. For Jonathan, however, the moment was emotionally devastating. Although he remained calm publicly, many close to the show later suggested the loss affected him deeply. But strangely enough, losing the competition turned out to be the beginning of something even bigger. Simon Cowell quickly signed Jonathan and Charlotte to a major recording deal through Psycho. Their debut album became a major commercial success, proving their popularity extended far beyond reality television. Suddenly, Jonathan was traveling internationally, performing on massive stages, and meeting some of the biggest names in classical music. For a teenager who had spent years hiding from bullies, the transformation felt unreal. Yet fame came with a dark side. Jonathan struggled intensely with the pressure of public attention. Every interview, every appearance, every performance placed him under scrutiny. Online comments about his weight continued even after his success. Instead of disappearing, the criticisms simply became larger and louder. Fans saw standing ovations. Jonathan often felt anxiety. As the duo's fame grew, so did creative differences between Jonathan and Charlotte. Jonathan leaned heavily toward opera and traditional classical music. Charlotte had broader interests in musical theater and contemporary crossover material. Over time, their musical visions stopped aligning. In 2014, the duo officially split. The announcement devastated fans around the world. For many people, Jonathan and Charlotte represented friendship, loyalty, and emotional connection. Seeing them separate felt like the ending of something special. Although both insisted the split was mutual and respectful, the emotional distance between them became obvious. Interviews later revealed they rarely stayed in touch afterward. Fans who once hoped they might remain lifelong collaborators struggled to accept how completely their paths had separated. For Jonathan, however, the split forced him into the next stage of his life. He had to discover whether audiences truly believed in him alone. That answer came quickly. Later in 2014, Jonathan released his first solo album, Tenore. The project became a major success and confirmed what Simon Cowell had predicted years earlier: Jonathan Antoine could stand on his own. Critics praised the maturity of his voice, noting how much richer and more powerful it had become since his television debut. Classical audiences began taking him seriously, not merely as a reality show contestant but as a genuine tenor with long-term potential. Perhaps the biggest validation came when legendary opera star Placido Domingo personally invited Jonathan to perform with him. For a young singer still struggling with self-confidence, the moment felt surreal. Jonathan's career continued growing internationally. He performed across the United States and Europe, recorded new albums, and developed a loyal fan base that followed every step of his journey. But privately, his emotional struggles were becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Jonathan later revealed he battled severe depression during parts of his rise to fame. Years of bullying had left emotional wounds far deeper than most people realized. Success could not magically erase childhood trauma. If anything, fame amplified his insecurities. There were periods when the pressure became overwhelming. He reportedly withdrew from major performances because his mental health made it impossible to continue. Some days, simply facing the public felt exhausting. What made Jonathan's story especially heartbreaking was how many people assumed success meant happiness. Fans saw the glamorous side of fame and believed he had escaped his painful past forever. In reality, he was still carrying those experiences every single day. He also experienced painful personal relationships during this period, including emotionally difficult situations that affected his mental stability even further. Jonathan rarely discussed these struggles publicly in detail, but interviews hinted at periods of deep emotional exhaustion. Despite everything, he refused to give up. Instead of hiding his pain completely, Jonathan slowly became more open about mental health awareness. He spoke honestly about depression, bullying, and emotional trauma. Fans appreciated his vulnerability because it made them feel less alone in their own struggles. One of the most surprising chapters of Jonathan's life came years later when he received an autism diagnosis as an adult. The diagnosis reportedly helped him understand himself in ways he never had before. Suddenly, many of the social difficulties and emotional experiences throughout his life began making sense. Jonathan explained that learning he was autistic completely changed how he viewed his past. For years, he had felt different without understanding why. The diagnosis did not fix anything overnight, but it gave him clarity. It allowed him to stop blaming himself for struggles he never fully understood growing up. Many fans admired his honesty when he publicly discussed the experience, especially because adult autism diagnoses are still widely misunderstood. At the same time, Jonathan began undergoing a dramatic physical transformation. For most of his life, his weight had been a source of public discussion and private pain. Years of emotional eating connected directly to bullying and depression had deeply affected his health. Eventually, Jonathan committed himself to major lifestyle changes. The transformation shocked fans. Over several years, he reportedly lost a significant amount of weight through discipline, daily exercise, and healthier habits. Social media photos revealed a visibly different Jonathan, slimmer, healthier, and more confident than many fans had ever seen him before. But unlike celebrity transformations built around vanity, Jonathan framed his journey differently. He spoke about health, discipline, and emotional healing rather than appearance alone. For him, the change represented taking control of his life after years of feeling trapped by insecurity. Fans celebrated not only the physical difference but the emotional growth behind it. Today, Jonathan Antoine continues performing, recording music, and building a quieter but meaningful career outside the intense reality TV spotlight that first made him famous. While he may no longer dominate headlines the way he did during the peak of his Britain's Got Talent fame, many fans believe he has finally found something more important than celebrity status: peace. His voice has matured dramatically over the years, becoming deeper, stronger, and even more emotional. Live performances continue drawing loyal audiences who appreciate not only his talent but the journey behind it. And perhaps that journey is the real reason Jonathan Antoine's story still resonates so strongly today. People didn't just connect with his singing. They connected with what he represented. A bullied teenager who was underestimated by almost everyone. A shy young man who stepped onto a stage terrified of being judged. A performer who lost a massive television competition but still built an international career. A survivor who faced depression, emotional trauma, public scrutiny, and personal confusion while millions watched from a distance. And through it all, Jonathan kept singing. That may be the most remarkable part of his story. Despite the criticism, despite the heartbreak, despite the pressure of fame and the emotional scars from childhood, he never abandoned the one thing that gave him hope in the first place. Music saved Jonathan Antoine long before fame ever found him. And in many ways, it still does. The truth about Jonathan Antoine was never some hidden scandal or shocking secret the world wasn't supposed to talk about. The real story is far more powerful than internet rumors. It's the story of a young man who spent years believing he wasn't enough, only to discover that his greatest strength came from the very pain he tried to hide. Every standing ovation, every successful album, every emotional performance carries pieces of that journey inside it. When audiences hear Jonathan sing today, they are not simply hearing technical perfection. They are hearing resilience, survival, vulnerability, strength. And maybe that's why his voice continues affecting people so deeply all these years later. Because Jonathan Antoine never sang like someone trying to become famous. He sang like someone trying to heal.